Tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the HIB Self Assessment, and what this is kind of a culmination of our mandatory reporting for the HIB legislation. So every spring we bring our anti-bullying specialists from all the buildings together, and we take a look at all the buildings and kind of what the year looked like from a couple of different perspectives. So there are 8 core elements, and there's 26 indicators in each, and we give ourselves a score and talk a little bit about how the year went and what things went well and what things we want to work on and things from that perspective. Typically, we do, like I said, we do it in the spring. We report all of our trainings and programs in January, and then we submit them in the spring as well, so it's kind of the culmination. We met on Tuesday, and we submit all this information into the Department of Education, and then we certify it, present it tonight, and at the end of October, it kind of completes the 18-19 process. So when we look at the core elements, what I try to do is present it from the perspective of what are we asking ourselves to look at as a school district. So the first core element is HIB programs, approaches, and other initiatives. So have we established and implemented and assessed programs? Are these programs geared towards preventing harassment, intimidation, bullying? And are we reviewing and looking for patterns of the incidents that we do have and trying to look at those things? And from a district perspective, a perfect score would be a 15, and we got a 13 out of 15. So the schools feel very good about what we're doing and the process that we're going about to do that. Core element 2 is training on the board-approved HIB policy. Again, here we're saying, was training provided? Does it include training on the protected categories? Was it discussed with students? We try to approach it from a couple of different perspectives. We do have global compliance and modules that talk a little bit generally about what's going on and the process and the legislation. It's addressed in staff meetings. It's addressed in student assemblies. So we really want to make sure that everybody's aware of, first of all, we do have a policy. What is that policy, and what do students need to be aware of, and what do staff members need to be aware of? The third core element is other staff instruction and training programs. Has each staff member received 2 hours of training on the HIB prevention? Does it include suicide prevention? Again, sometimes this is where we're using the GCN to comply with some of this stuff. One of the things that came out, and I'll talk a little bit about it later, is in regards to suicide prevention. That was one area that the teams felt like that might be something that we want to bring in presenters to talk to our staff. Obviously, mental health is such an important topic right now, and what some students are struggling with. So that is something that you'll see later on as an area that we might want to focus on moving forward. Core element 4 is curriculum instruction on HIB and other related information and skills. Do we provide age-appropriate instruction? Are we observing the week of respect? And that's coming up in October, and we do a number of activities you'll be hearing about in each of the schools in regards to that. Obviously, in regards to the age-appropriate curriculum, we've got Second Step, we've got Medal of Honor. So there's a number of different things that we do developmentally throughout the curriculum to try to help kids. And so with a score of 5.5 out of 6, again, we feel good about the work that we're doing. Core element number 5 is HIB personnel. We have 2 anti-bullying specialists, at least in every building, that are trained to help out and kind of work within the buildings. So we feel very good about the resources that we've put into the programs. Our school safety teams are made up of teachers, anti-bullying specialists, administrators, parents, and they're looking at what's going on in the buildings from a program perspective as well as incidents. And so they're meeting on a regular basis, and that's something the police are involved in now. So we've really kind of elevated, I would say, that whole process. Core element number 6 is the HIB incident reporting. Again, that goes back to, does everybody know what our procedure is, what somebody needs to do to start an investigation and report an incident? And again, we feel very good about our work there. Investigative procedures. And here it gets to the point, once an investigation is begun, parents are notified that day, letters are sent out, the investigation needs to be completed in 10 days. There's a whole reporting process. Again, is everybody aware of that process? Are we meeting all those deadlines? That's all part of the submission process. So with a 12 out of 12 there, we're exceeding the expectations in regards to understanding that process and following it. HIB reporting is the 8th. Is there a procedure for staff reporting HIB, and are we posting the grades on the school and district website? You can go to the website and see all the information in this presentation and the previous years. There's a way for, parents and everybody to get more information on the website, so we're really using that as an important tool as well. So a perfect score being a 78, our district score average is a 71.1. So a score of 52 would mean that you are meeting all the expectations set forth by the Department of Education. And this is a look at the different categories just by the different schools. And I think what you'll see is a lot of times when it comes to the difference between meeting the expectations and exceeding the expectations, the rubric can be very specific, and the request to exceed the documentation that it would take. We always say to the teams, if you're comfortable, because we're clearly meeting, but you don't know if we have all the documentation to say that we're exceeding, we're clearly meeting the expectations. Let's make a note. Next year we'll look to keep some additional documentation and things to make sure that we can move things forward. Again, from a strengths perspective, across the board we have a very strong program, and we're certainly proud of all the work that we do. But in terms of the score, if you will, investigative procedure, we have a 12 out of 12. Our HIB reporting is a 5.8 out of 6. Curriculum instruction is a 5.5 out of 6. HIB personnel at 8.5 out of 9. So certainly those are areas that are strong. And across the board, HIB reporting procedure 5.3 out of 6, 7.8 out of 9, 13.2 out of 15, and a 13 out of 15. So again, we feel really good about the work that we're doing. But when we say, what are some of the areas that we want to focus on? And what we did is we brought all the schools together and looked at the different indicators and said, what are some areas that we might want to focus on for the next year? So in core element number 1, which is HIB programs and approaches, one of the things we talked about was building initiatives to include training on social emotional learning and mindfulness. That's going to kind of segue very nicely into the next presentation. It's something that the building started to do last year and really got a lot of positive feedback on it and really saw some great things going on. So that's something that we're looking to emphasize even more. Continue to look for ways to assess our programs and make changes as necessary. One of the things that came up this year was using Google Forms to get some specific feedback from all the staff members when we do bring in assemblies. This year we're very grateful for the PTA. We're going to bring in Lead University and do a much more kind of focused program at the elementary schools and middle school. So they're not going to be doing the laser light show and some of the one-off programs that we've been doing in the past, but Lead U is going to give us an opportunity to, and the nice thing about Lead U is they come in and meet with each school individually, talk about what you're seeing in the building, what are some of the challenges, what are some areas of your building focus, and then those are the things that become part of the presentation. And then support the school safety teams as they look for patterns of HIB, review school climate and policies for prevention. Again, something we haven't really taken a look at is the policies specifically, and are there some different things? Is it a time to look at some changes in how we do some things from a policy perspective? So that's something that the teams will be looking to do this year. In core element number 3, other staff instruction and training programs. Again, as I mentioned, one of the areas that we're going to look to do is bring in some professionals on suicide prevention and to speak with the staff and perhaps the students as well and talk about some of those challenging topics. And the other thing that come up is providing the whole school safety team sometimes with professional development can be difficult. One of the nice things though is a lot of the workshops now are bring your team to the workshop, talk about what you're doing, hear about what the other schools are doing, and the rubric talks about the whole team going to that training. And typically we'll send one person or 2 people, but I think the teams would like to be able to send maybe 3 or 4 people there to have a little bit more of a presence, talk about some different things, and maybe kind of set some expectations and things and activities that they can do moving forward. And that's really it. Again, and it's with a huge thanks to the anti-bullying specialists in the building and the building administrators, and the PTA. I mean, we're really trying to bring a very concerted and focused effort to harassment, intimidation, and bullying. But like when I talk about it all the time, the business of teaching is pretty simple, right? It's about teaching and learning. But we want to create a place where kids are comfortable in learning and teachers have the freedom to teach, and any behavior that's going to either stop a teacher from teaching or stop a student from learning is going to be addressed. And we all know what the space we want to create for kids, a positive, where everybody feels respected, and we're working really hard to do that, and we provide a number of programs and trainings, and so it's when you go through processes like this that you say, wow, I mean, looking at the trainings and programs, we're doing on average 30 trainings in a building, close to 35 programs in the building. Now there's some duplication because of the elementaries and that, but when you sit down and put pen to paper and start to say, okay, what do we do in September, October, November, December, all of a sudden the list gets really long about all the ways that we're creating these really positive places for kids and for staff members. So a big thanks to all the building reps and building administrators and the PTA for leading units.